I just felt like the marriage should have been a priority. And that old advice, the marriage comes first no matter what, it really made sense to me at the time. But it was only a matter of months before I just realized it wasn't that simple. And it never would be. I had to let go of my hopes of this fairy tale future with Kim and start learning how to be strategic and intentional. Kim and I had to learn to become a good team around family priorities. And if you're listening, you need to do the same. Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. We're so glad that you're here once again. Hey, if you're popping on and you have not yet subscribed in Apple Podcasts or in any other platform that you're listening on, we would highly recommend that you subscribe so you don't miss shows. And while you're at it, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating or a review after you've listened to a few episodes, we would love your feedback. And so would lots of other people who are searching for podcasts about blended families.
Yes, we appreciate that.
So if you could do that, we would love that. Now, today we're going to dive right in and we're going to tackle a really big and pretty complicated, sometimes even controversial topic about priorities in a blended family, right? Now, we get this question a lot, specifically from bio parents. Like, okay, do I put my marriage first or do I put my kids first? And there's lots of people on opposite extremes of this whole discussion. And it tends to be an area that can create a lot of stress and confusion. You know, most bio parents just get frustrated and it can really cause a lot of pain for step parents as well. So we're going to just talk a little bit about some blended family dynamics that make us naturally predisposed to experience these challenges around family priorities. That's where we're going to start today. Okay.
What makes it so hard?
Yeah, it is hard, but it's part of the journey.
It is.
Right? You know, every blended family starts out with their relationships kind of out of balance. So the natural progression of family relationships for a first family really starts with a couple who then become parents together, right? So the couple relationship comes first and the parental relationship comes second.
Right.
Now, in a step family or a blended family, that actually gets reversed. The parent and child relationship has more history and deeper connection, and it's bonded by blood and a family identity.
Yes.
Okay. So when a step couple starts out bringing children into the relationship that pre-existed from a previous relationship, it often feels like their marriage, their relationship is the one that's secondary to those pre-existing bonds they have with their kids.
Sure.
Okay. I hope we haven't thoroughly confused you by now. See, most of us believe that marriage is the foundation of a family, and therefore it should be the highest priority. And that makes sense in first family dynamics. But a blended family begins without that solid marital foundation, and because their relationships are just out of balance. They're out of order from the very beginning.
Yeah, from the get-go. So true. And this dynamic is even more profound when a parent has spent a lot of time being a single parent, right? Who just pours themselves into their kids for that season.
Sure.
So following their separation from their former spouse, their whole life kind of revolved around their kids. And now, subsequently, their kids are used to receiving this excessive amount of focus, time, and attention from their parent. And it's probably way more than they would have even in a first family dynamic, right?
That's right. It's more focused.
It is. Yeah. Single parents and their kids, they go through a lot together and they often form these really tight bonds. I know I had a really tight bond with my daughter, Annika. So then when the parent decides to remarry, it can be a very difficult transition, not just for the kids who are really used to all of this focused attention from their parent, but also for the parent, who's worked really hard over the years to kind of hold things together and really support their kids. Mm-hmm. And so a remarriage can trigger insecurity. It can trigger the fear of losing these close connections that have become lifelines for both the child and the parent.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about that with kids, right? But we've got to recognize sometimes that fear exists for parents as well. Yeah. And hopefully that helps to just shed a little bit of light on why this can be so tough. Typical blended family couples are dealing with the relational imbalance.
Sure.
Bio parents have solid bonds that predate the marriage, and yet somehow they need to figure out how to prioritize and honor their spouse while continuing to meet those numerous needs of the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And this is no easy task for a bio parent. They've often feel like they have to choose either one or the other. They're like a trapped teammate. But today we'll hopefully be able to help you find a little more balance so you don't constantly feel like you have to make this either or choice here, either my spouse or my kids, but you can focus on making regular choices that actually include both.
Yeah.
And this is super important because if you aren't mindful and careful with prioritizing your time, your energy, and how you make decisions, you can make some pretty easy wrong turns that usually will negatively impact your marriage as well as that sense of stability that you really want your kids to experience in your home. So this topic can sometimes make or break the future of a blended family. It's really that important.
It really is. Honey, you just mentioned that term trapped teammate. And I just want to add that if you're listening and you aren't familiar with this term, we highly encourage you to go back and listen to episodes 21 through 24, which are all about this dynamic of a bio parent stuck in the middle, feeling trapped. All they want is for everyone to be happy. I was there.
Yeah, I remember.
But they just feel like they're kind of this rope and a tug of war between their kids and their spouse.
Yeah, that's right. And these episodes that you just described also talk about how stranded the step parent can be on the outside of those pre-existing bio relationships. And often they feel like a stranger in their own home. And, from our experience, both personally and as step family coaches over the years, we've seen pretty much every couple experience this trapped teammate, stranded stranger dynamic to some degree or another. And that creates disconnection and some pretty painful realities that you might not be prepared to handle. I mean, I know we were definitely not prepared to handle, and it's been really tough in our own marriage and our own family. So if you haven't already, go back and check out those episodes 21 to 24, and we'll link to those in the show notes so that you can learn more about this trapped teammate, stranded stranger. It plays a big part in what we're going to talk about today, which really is all about priorities, right?
Yeah. So before we get into some healthy approaches and strategies around prioritizing, let's just talk about the unhealthy approaches that we've seen couples kind of gravitate to.
So we're talking about ourselves then?
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone has those easy wrong turns that they make. So let's kind of talk about how that happens. And first, I want to use an example of one couple that we coached. And we're just going to call them Daphne and Stan. It's not their real names.
Good.
So Daphne and Stan, they came to us because they were brokenhearted and they were really baffled as to why Stan's teenage kids had moved out of their home to live with their mom and were now refusing contact and communication with them.
Yeah.
Even excluding them from major events. It was really hurtful. They were hurting. Now, as we learn more about this couple and their story, it became clear that they'd launched into their marriage kind of joined at the hip. Yeah. I mean, they really were. Everything was about the two of them. They really kind of insisted that the kids fit into their relationship. In other words, both of them had to be present for every activity and every interaction with Stan's kids. Their easy wrong turn was pouring all of their time, focus, and energy into their new marriage which left the kids relationally starving and feeling kind of abandoned by their dad.
Mm-hmm. And that's a tough pill to swallow because we hear over and over again, hey, marriage comes first.
Sure.
You've got to be right there. And there's a good heart behind that message, right? But in blended families, it's just different. So if we're not supposed to pour everything into the marriage right out of the gate, then that must mean the opposite is true, right? We'll just pour everything into the kids instead.
Well,
I mean, if that didn't work, I mean, let's explore that a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
So we'll contrast that story Kim just told with another couple that we got to work with, and we'll call them Rhonda and Les. Again, not their real names. But this couple was struggling as well, and it wasn't because the issues with the kids, actually. The issues were really between the two of them. They were experiencing a lot of conflict, disconnection, painful interactions, and all of this was right at the forefront of their marital relationship.
yeah.
You see, Rhonda had made it very clear at the very beginning of the relationship that her kids were first and would always be her top priority. Her primary focus was just catering to the kids' requests, even when it meant breaking her agreements with her husband, Les. Her words and actions continually reinforced to Les that he was insignificant. He was unheard and alone, and it caused him to struggle with ongoing feelings of anger toward her and resentment toward her kids. So here's the thing. Both of these couples, the one that Kim just shared about, the one that I just shared about, they were really stuck because of easy wrong turns and some misguided thinking around priorities.
Yeah.
They were locked into a belief of kind of an extreme. Either one, the marriage has to come first, or two, the kids have to come first. And it just wasn't going to succeed because they had these hard line boundaries around focusing priorities on either one or the other. And the truth is that the healthiest step families find the middle ground by first understanding a couple of really big realities and then implementing some good strategies as a team.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to use the rest of our time exploring today.
So now we know what the easy wrong turns look like.
Yeah, either I'm going to pick one or the other. I get into this either or mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, let's find out how we can do this well.
Yeah, but let's explore two realities first.
Right. So the first reality is that your remarriage most often feels like a loss to the kids.
Oh, it's hard to own.
We have to remember that. You know, if you've ever had that feeling that your kids or your stepkids tend to be manipulative, that could be a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation on your part. Really, they might just be trying to get their needs met. Kids need to feel that they aren't forgotten when a parent remarries. They need that sense of security that they're still bonded to that parent. You know, kids in step families tend to act out because they have a significant sense of loss or a fear. This is very common, even though the intensity varies depending on the age, the personality, and the previous family experience for each child.
Definitely.
So our job as parents and step-parents is to identify the level of loss and insecurity that they could be struggling with, and then make it a priority to create an environment that really increases their security. It gives them what they need. And this is probably going to require some sacrifice from both of you as you discover how to balance your time and energy between that focus on your marriage and that parent-child relationship in your home. So we've got some tips for you here.
Yeah, here's just a couple. So step parents, you already know, if you've listened to our podcast any length of time at all, I'm going to tell you, one-on-one time and supporting your partner with their kids is so important. I know you've heard it over and over again, but it's so important that I'm going to just keep talking about it. And what we need to focus on sometimes is the little things. Sometimes I think when we talk about one-on-one time, we have this interpretation that we have to plan this big outing or a weekend or whatever. But I remember, you know, when Annika was little, and one of the things that was really special to you and Annika was just your bedtime routine.
Right.
You had a little snuggle time. You used to sing that little the little teddy bear parade thing to her. I could hear it coming from the bedroom. And I had to learn to just stay out of the way. And it's like 15 minutes. Right? It wasn't that big a deal. And then you got that wrapped up and you came out and you snuggled on the couch with me and we had our time. And so really allowing that to happen, that one-on-one time to happen in the small things, the rituals, the little routines, that's really a great step, a practical way, and a really simple way for step parents to support this.
It's an investment in the child's sense of security.
Yeah. And this is a struggle. This was one of the struggles that Daphne and Stan really wrestled with, because they just expected Stan's kids to accept Daphne at every moment, in every aspect of their lives. There were those little bedtime moments, whatever they were for them, where Daphne just kind of inserted herself.
Yeah.
And the kids needed something different. Yeah. And it was just hard for them to sort that out. But if they had made that one-on-one time for Stan and his kids a priority, it could have changed their story. And it could have made a big difference in how the kids reacted to this remarriage. So that's just one little tip for step parents. We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
Yeah, I think a lot of times kids feel like they've been replaced. That's kind of where they go when they're experiencing loss. So it would have been nice for Stan's kids to understand that, they haven't been replaced.
Yeah, totally.
So bio parents, when your spouse offers this gift to you of one-on-one time with your kids, you can balance that sacrifice for your spouse by intentionally reserving some time and energy to focus on them.
That's right.
And really be intentional about expressing your gratitude towards them and affirming their investment in your family, because that's what it is. And this is going to help your marriage remain stable and show your kids a good example of a healthy relationship.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're investing in your spouse as well as your kids.
That's right. It's these little things that start to reduce that trapped teammate, stranded stranger that we talked about a few minutes ago.
And continually doing these little things. It's not a one and done thing. It's ongoing.
That's right. So the first big reality was just remembering that our remarriage most often represents a loss to the kids. And then we do a little bit of something about that.
Got to be mindful of that.
The second big reality is that your relationship needs to experience a gradual rebalancing. Okay. So like we talked about earlier, every step family starts out with their relationships kind of out of balance. While Daphne and Stan did this hard shift to the left and kind of kept the kids on the outside, Rhonda and Les struggled to make their marriage a priority at all, and both approaches were way out of balance. The goal here is to rebalance the relationship so that the marriage is elevated while at the same time preserving stability in the parent-child relationships. It's not an either or, it's a both and. Now, I know that simple little statement makes it sound really easy, right? But the reality is this is most often a complicated process that takes patience and intentionality. Yeah. And we're going to make imperfect progress here. We're going to make some mistakes.
Yeah, we certainly did.
Sure. There could be challenges as you move toward prioritizing your marriage. You might experience some guilt, conflicting emotions. Your kids and your spouse kind of seem to be competing for your time, your attention, and alignment to their preferences. And it's hard to be stuck in the middle of that, but it's not impossible to balance this out. You might also struggle to take the necessary risks to really elevate your marriage and begin to set it up as a foundational part of your home. And it's just a tough spot to be in.
Really
and you've been there.
I have. When we coach Rhonda around ways to prioritize her marriage, she strongly objected.
And we hear that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, this isn't unique to her. Yeah.
She really pushed back. She was saying things like, are you telling me I have to put less ahead of my kids' needs? My kids have been through so much, and I don't want them to feel like they don't have a say or that I'm neglecting them in any way.
Yeah.
I really feel for Rhonda because I felt the same way when I first started understanding this dynamic. Rhonda was really struggling with paralyzing guilt, and she refused to take the necessary risks to move her marriage into that place of priority as the foundation of the home.
Yeah.
And there are some risks.
Absolutely.
That need to be worked through for sure. Now, stepfamily expert Ron Deal tells a story of a stepfather who complained that after 2 years of marriage, he was still riding in the backseat of the car while his wife's children took turns riding up front.
Wow. 2 years of marriage.
How would you feel, honey?
I would be pretty angry, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have lasted 2 years.
It's kind of demeaning, right? I remember Ron telling this story at a workshop that we went to, and it really hit me hard because I was in that dilemma that Rhonda was in.
Yeah.
I didn't want my daughter to feel like I was putting her aside to elevate you.
Yeah, we never had the issue of me riding in the backseat of the car, primarily because Annika was really little and she never rode in the front seat anyway from that point. But we had lots of times where I felt like I was a fifth wheel or I was in the back seat because of the way things were getting prioritized.
Or decisions were made based on what Annika wanted, not what you wanted.
Yeah.
We love Ron Deal, and in his article, it's called Placing Your Spouse in the Front Seat of Your Heart, which I thought was a clever name for his article on this topic. I'm just going to read a quote out of that article because he's so articulate in how he states this. He says, "The process of establishing the couple as the foundational relationship of the home can feel like a win-lose situation for the biological parent and the children. The marriage wins, the children lose. But this is not the case. It's a matter of significance. It's not that a spouse matters more than children, but rather that a strong marriage relationship contributes more significantly to the stability of the home than any other factor."
Wow.
Including the children. Yeah.
Say that sentence again.
It's not that a spouse matters more than children, but rather that a strong marriage relationship contributes more significantly to the stability of the home than any other factor. He goes on, "Your children will never suffer neglect because you make a strong commitment to your new spouse. You don't have to choose between your spouse and your children when you make your marriage your primary priority. You're actually choosing both. Placing your spouse in the front seat of your heart is good for your children too. In fact, a healthy marriage means safety and protection for your children."
All right. Now, wait. So earlier we said one of the challenges here is getting all the way to this extreme of, your marriage is supposed to be first versus the other extreme of the kids always come first.
Right.
Now, this quote you just read, that's powerful and it's good, but it kind of sounds like that extreme of you better put your marriage first. Yeah. That's a little bit confusing to me, but here's the deal. Remember that this is a process.
Yes.
And we've kind of pulled this quote out of the whole story, which you need to...
This is where we want to get.
Yeah, we don't want to pull this out of context, but it's a process that's going to take time, and we're going to be gradually elevating the significance of the marriage, and we're going to do it as a team. In fact, research shows that it takes an average of 7 years for stepfamilies to fully integrate. So do your research and be intentional about the rebalancing that needs to take place in your home.
Yes.
If you're still really early in your stepfamily's journey, it's important to probably lean toward what the kids are used to, especially around the little small things, right? And this creates security for the kids. It helps them ease into their new stepfamily structure. However, it's crucial that you and your spouse are united in these decisions and have mutual understanding around a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
Early in our journey, we had a little bit of learning. We had the advantage of getting some learning really early. But it was still really tough for me. I often felt like I was being deprioritized. But in those moments where you and I negotiated well together as a team, and we decided together to put Annika first on certain decisions and in certain situations, I actually felt really good about that. Yeah. I felt like we were working as a team. I felt like we were investing in our family and our marriage and all of that, even though I wasn't necessarily getting what I want when I wanted it right there in that moment.
But you were part of the decision.
Exactly. And I think that's a huge piece of us moving forward when we're walking through this process of gradually, slowly elevating the marriage, is that we do it from a place of unity and teamwork.
Yep.
And then as time goes by, the bio parent then starts to lean toward the spouse's preference a little bit more and a little bit more. And it makes it easier for them because we're taking steps, not gigantic leaps.
It's a gradual progression.
Now, this sounds really risky. But when a parent is unwilling to elevate the marriage, elevate their relationship with their spouse, then an unhealthy dynamic usually naturally takes over called a parent-child allegiance.
And this is where Rhonda and Les were stuck. Rhonda had allowed her kids to claim the majority of the power in the home. Decisions were always based on what her kids wanted, and Les was just kind of shut out. And again, go back and listen to episode 24 if you want to learn more about parent-child allegiances. And we'll also post a link to one of our articles that covers parent-child allegiances and how to break free, because this is a really unhealthy dynamic that can happen.
That's right.
So the question is, now that we've talked about these two realities.
Yep. And those two realities are remembering your remarriage most often feels like a loss to the kids, and your relationships need to be gradually rebalanced. It's a process. It's going to take time.
Yeah, those are your two realities. So now the question is, well, how do we rebalance our relationships, elevate our marriage, and maintain stability for the kids?
That's right. We're going to jump into these and we're going to kind of go rapid fire. Yep. There's a whole bunch in a really short period of time. So grab whatever you're going to use to take notes and
unless you're
driving. Unless you're driving, and then try to hang with us as we go through this. You know, the most effective way that we've found to create stability for your kids and be intentional about this rebalancing, it's all about unity.
Yep.
You as a couple must learn how to work together as a team for the good of your marriage and your long-term success as a step family. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be unexpected circumstances. You're going to get discouraged along the way.
Yep.
All this is going to threaten to pull the two of you apart.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when Kim and I first got married, I was blindsided by a lot of these realities, even though I did get some help early on, right? I didn't have any kids before we got married. This was my first marriage. And I had really high expectations, and really, honestly, they were unrealistic. My expectation was that our focus would be primarily on our marriage. And my stepdaughter, Annika, would come second. I really wanted to lean into that same belief that Daphne and Stan were struggling with, because I just felt like the marriage should have been a priority. And that old advice, the marriage comes first no matter what, it really made sense to me at the time. But it was only a matter of months before I just realized it wasn't that simple. And it never would be. I had to let go of my hopes of this fairy tale future with Kim and start learning how to be strategic and intentional. Kim and I had to learn to become a good team. And if you're listening, you need to do the same.
Absolutely.
So we're going to share a few how-tos, again, rapid fire, that are kind of secrets for building this unity.
Yeah, the first one is don't avoid.
But I don't want to rock the boat.
Talk about these things. What we've learned over the years is that avoidance simply creates more problems. It doesn't solve anything. You've got to communicate and work toward your common goals.
That's right. Next, you're going to have to handle conflict well. Look, you're going to have conflict. But here's the thing. Conflict doesn't mean your relationship is unstable. In fact, most couples report feeling closer when they've learned to resolve conflict in a healthy way. So healthy communication and conflict resolution is an actual skill, and you can learn it.
You can.
You can grow in it.
If we've done it, you can do it.
That's right. Learn how to do that. Next, we want to figure out how to make decisions together. all the kids need the two of you to be united. They need consistency. They need stability in the home. And you're the ones who's going to provide that. So establish your home's code of conduct as a team. Work on that rebalancing of your relationships and loosen that trapped teammate, stranded stranger dynamic. You're going to work on that as a team.
Also, you want to work behind closed doors. Essentially, what I'm saying here is don't talk about the kids in front of the kids.
Yeah.
They need to see that you're building unity as a team. Negotiating a decision about them in front of them, when you do that, it does not help.
Yeah, it complicates matters.
Yeah, because then the kids will typically side with their bio parent. They'll insert themselves into the conversation, and this is going to drive a wedge between the two of you. That's the last thing we want. So make your decisions behind closed doors and then communicate to the kids.
Yeah, appropriately. That's right. All right. Next, you need to learn to vocalize your support for each other in front of the kids. Now, there's a few different aspects to this. First, you want to back up your spouse's decision in front of the kids. They need to see you working as a united team. Now, that means even when they do something that you don't fully agree with, you're going to back it up in front of the kids anyway. And then, just like Kim said a moment ago, you're going to go work behind closed doors to decide how you're going to do better next time.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So that's one scenario. Now, for a step parent, you want to insist out loud that your spouse spends special time with their kids. That whole one-on-one time. Let the kids know that you're not in competition with them and acknowledge the importance of their relationship with their bio parents. So verbally encourage that. It's totally fine. Yeah. And lastly, confirm your commitment to each other, both verbally and physically. Say, I love you to each other in front of the kids. Hold hands in front of the kids. Give hugs and kisses in front of the kid. Don't make out. Like, I mean, come on. We all know.
Don't make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, don't make them uncomfortable. Well, actually, let me add to that. It's not that we don't want to make them uncomfortable. In fact, sometimes we avoid this as a step couple because we don't want to make the kids uncomfortable. But the truth is that solid marriages include physical affection. Okay. We're not talking about inappropriate affection in front of kids. We're just talking about the reality of the I love yous, the hand holding, the hugs and the kisses.
Yeah. Even if it's playful and fun.
Absolutely. Do that in front of the kids because it gives a sense of stability.
Yes. They need to know that you're working on your marriage and you're in it.
That's right. So all of that is about really being a team and vocalizing our support for each other in front of the kids.
Yeah, speaking it out loud.
Yeah. Let's go to the next thing.
The next one is don't allow the kids to manipulate or use guilt to get their way. This is a tough one. I've been there. If you tend to make decisions from a place of guilt or fear, this is never healthy. Believe me, I know. And it's especially damaging to the kids who will naturally want what they want, right?
They can sniff out your weak spots like there's no tomorrow.
And if they learn that they can manipulate you, they certainly will, which gives them way too much power. And this is going to lead to those parent-child allegiances, and it's also going to lead to trouble in your marriage. We've put a link to several articles about overcoming guilt and parent-child allegiances in the show notes if you're struggling in this area and you need some extra support. But don't ignore this if this is happening to you.
That's right.
And that leads us to the next one, which is respond with firm compassion when your kids complain. Right?
Firm compassion. Explain that. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, you should actually expect that as you move your marriage into a place of priority, your kids will most likely be a little upset, especially if they're used to things always going their way. Now, I just want to tell you, it's okay if they complain, okay? Kids do that. A complaint is different than a criticism. And believe me, your kids are still going to love you.
That's right.
All right.
We get lots of complaints from our mutual kids.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Kids complain.
You don't have to take it as a criticism and allow guilt there. Be sure to hold your ground. So that's the firm part. Hold your ground. Don't cower, but also respond with some empathy and compassion.
Yeah. What does it sound like?
Sounds something like this. I know things are changing and I can see that it's been hard for you. but this is the new rule, and I do expect you to follow it.
Yeah. So I like that. Firm compassion.
Firm compassion.
That's a good thing to remember. If you don't get anything else out of this podcast today, remember that little phrase, firm compassion. That's great. And then finally, we're talking about all this rebalancing. We've talked a lot about unity and focusing on kids and all these different ways that we can rebalance these relationships. And the final one is don't forget to make time for romance.
Oh, yeah.
Man, we've got a lot to manage as a step couple, right? There's this business of running a step family that can just suck the romance right out of our relationship. And it happens quick because we don't really get that honeymoon period that a lot of first family couples get.
Yeah, we've had the romance sucked out of our relationship on this journey.
Lots of times. So be intentional about building your romance and keep that just for you.
Yes.
Don't talk about parenting. Don't talk about chores or finances when you're out on date night and when you're really trying to focus on each other. Learn to just enjoy each other.
Yeah, make that heart-to-heart connection.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So the bottom line, your marriage is a major priority. And so is the rest of your step family.
That's right.
So your job here is to balance priorities so that all your relationships thrive in the long run. If you take the marriage always comes first advice too literally, like Daphne and Stan did, the result will most likely not be what you're hoping for.
That's right.
Yeah, you might experience some heartache. And remember that Rhonda and Les showed us that the opposite approach is no better. A spouse left in the back seat isn't what's best for your family.
Yeah.
So keep your focus on creating stability for all the kids, effectively rebalancing your relationships, and most important, stay united as a team.
Yeah, that's good. Man, we hit you with a whole bunch of stuff really rapid fire. So if you need to go back and take some notes and just pick out maybe one or two of the things we talked about to focus on over this next week.
Yeah, but take a next step.
Absolutely. Don't stay stagnant and please don't be overwhelmed. I know, again, we threw a lot at you. So I think that's going to wrap up for today. We don't want to add any more to your plate. But go back and listen back through just those rapid fire thoughts. Pick your one or two things. And then we'll plan on seeing you next week where we're going to be focusing on one very specific aspect of communication as you're working as a team to rebalance those relationships.
It's a skill you can learn.
That's right. And please don't forget to leave us a rating or a review. And with that, this episode is a wrap.
Until next time.